Welcome to Biography with Plutarch, where we delve into the lives of extraordinary individuals who have shaped the course of human history. Today, we turn our attention to Anne Hutchinson, a woman whose unwavering conviction and unrelenting passion would ignite a firestorm of controversy in 17th-century America. Born on July 20, 1591, in Alford, Lincolnshire, England, Anne's early life was marked by a unique blend of spiritual fervor, intellectual curiosity, and domestic duty. As we immerse ourselves in the world of young Anne, we find ourselves in the picturesque market town of Alford, nestled in the rolling hills of eastern England. The air is crisp, the thatched roofs of the cottages are a warm golden brown, and the sound of the River Witham gently flowing through the town greets a soothing melody. It was here, in this tranquil setting, that Anne spent her formative years, surrounded by a loving family and a community deeply rooted in Puritan values. Anne's father, Francis Marbury, was a clergyman of considerable influence, known for his outspoken critiques of the Church of England. His sermons, laced with passion and conviction, would often leave a lasting impression on his congregation. As a young girl, Anne would listen intently to her father's words, soaking up the theological debates that raged within their community. Her mother, Bridget Dryden, was a woman of strong character and unwavering faith, who instilled in Anne a deep sense of devotion and moral principle. Her parents' commitment to the Puritan faith, with its emphasis on personal piety and biblical literalism, would have a profound impact on Anne's spiritual development. The Marbury household was a hub of intellectual and theological activity, with visitors such as the renowned theologian William Perkins, often engaging in lively debates and discussions. Anne's education, though limited by the conventions of her time, was nonetheless rigorous and wide-ranging. She would have received instruction in reading, writing, and basic arithmetic, as well as being schooled in the principles of Christianity and the Scriptures. Her father, recognizing her intellectual curiosity and aptitude, may have also provided her with access to more advanced theological texts and discussions. As Anne entered adulthood, she began to take on more responsibilities within her family. In 1612, at the age of 21, she married William Hutchinson, a successful merchant who shared her commitment to the Puritan faith. The couple had several children, and Anne dedicated herself to raising them in the ways of the Lord. However, she also continued to pursue her own intellectual and spiritual interests, often engaging in discussions with her husband and other like-minded individuals about the latest theological developments. The historical context of Anne's early years was marked by significant social, religious, and cultural change. The English Reformation, with its emphasis on individual faith and scriptural authority, had created a fertile ground for theological debate and innovation. The Puritan movement, with its calls for further reform and greater personal piety, would have a profound impact on Anne's spiritual development and future actions. In 1634, Anne and her family arrived in Boston, Massachusetts, a bustling hub of Puritan activity. The city was alive with theological debates, and Anne quickly found herself at the center of the discussion. Her husband, William, was a successful merchant who became a respected member of the community, and Anne's own reputation as a devout and intelligent woman spread rapidly. As Anne settled into her new life in America, she began to attend sermons and meetings at the Boston Church, where she was exposed to the teachings of prominent ministers such as John Cotton and John Wilson. However, Anne soon found herself disillusioned with the rigid dogma and patriarchal attitudes that pervaded the church. She believed that individuals should be free to interpret Scripture for themselves without interference from clergy or secular authorities. Anne's unorthodox views quickly attracted attention, and she began to host weekly meetings at her home where she would lead discussions on theology and Scripture. These gatherings, known as conventicles, drew a diverse group of attendees, including women, men, and even some of the city's most prominent citizens. Anne's message of personal piety and spiritual freedom resonated deeply with many, but it also sparked fierce opposition from those who saw her as a threat to the established order. One of Anne's most notable critics was John Winthrop, the governor of Massachusetts, who viewed her as a troublemaker and a heretic. Winthrop and other church leaders saw Anne's emphasis on personal interpretation as a challenge to their authority, and they began to conspire against her. In 1637, Anne was summoned before the General Court, where she was put on trial for her supposed crimes. The trial was a dramatic and intense affair, with Anne facing off against some of the most powerful men in the colony. Despite being heavily pregnant and facing intense pressure, Anne remained steadfast in her convictions, refusing to back down or compromise her beliefs. Her courage and conviction inspired many, but ultimately, she was found guilty and banished from the colony. Her refusal to submit to authority and her insistence on individual freedom of conscience would have far-reaching consequences, shaping not only her own destiny but also the course of American history. After being banished from Massachusetts in 1638, Anne and her family moved to Rhode Island, where they were welcomed by the more tolerant community. However, Anne's husband, William, died soon after their arrival, leaving Anne a widow with a large family to support. Despite these challenges, Anne remained committed to her principles and continued to advocate for individual freedom of conscience. In 1642, Anne and her family moved again, this time to the Dutch colony on Long Island, where they established a new community in what is now the Bronx, New York. The community, known as Hutchinson's Colony, was founded on the principles of religious tolerance and individual liberty, and it quickly attracted a diverse group of settlers. Tragically, Anne's life was cut short in 1643, when she and many of her family members were killed in an attack by Native American warriors. The attack was part of a larger conflict between the Dutch colonists and the indigenous peoples of the region, and it marked the end of Hutchinson's colony. Despite her tragic death, Anne Hutchinson's legacy lived on, inspiring generations of Americans to fight for individual freedom and religious tolerance. Her courageous stand against the patriarchal authorities of her time paved the way for future feminist movements, and her commitment to individual liberty helped shape the course of American history. Her refusal to submit to authority and her insistence on individual freedom of conscience continue to inspire and fascinate us to this day. As the American poet and historian Nathaniel Ward once wrote, Anne Hutchinson was a woman of great parts and of a sharp wit, and she had a tongue that could speak as smoothly as oil, but it was also as sharp as a razor. In conclusion, Anne Hutchinson's later life was marked by both triumph and tragedy, as she navigated the challenges of her banishment from Massachusetts and her eventual settlement on Long Island. Despite facing numerous obstacles, Anne remained committed to her principles, inspiring generations of Americans with her courage and conviction. That's all for today's Biography with Plutarch. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that understanding the lives of remarkable individuals helps us better understand ourselves.